The future of global order will not just be defined by US-China relations, even as tensions between these two countries are likely to continue. Instead, Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Lawrence Wong says that other players like India and ASEAN are emerging. Speaking at the FutureChina Global Forum, Mr. Wong says that Singapore supports China's involvement in ASEAN. Heidi Ng with more.
Uncertainty lurks for Asia as parts of the world contend with war, inflation, and geopolitical rivalry. But the region shouldn't resign itself to external challenges, according to Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Lawrence Wong. Instead, he calls for it to steer the trajectory of developments in the region towards peace and stability. That's as the global order moves away from just US-China relations.
The world is still in transition, and there will be considerable uncertainties as we move toward a new equilibrium in this multipolar world. But that also means that we are not passive bystanders. We have agency in shaping developments in the region.
He stressed the need to stand firm on the fundamental principles of international law and to work with others to strengthen multilateralism and uphold order.
We want to foster greater economic interdependence and integration here in ASEAN so that everyone can grow their economic ties with one another and develop overlapping circles of friends. We think that's going to be much better than having a hard line or, worse, a new wall that will force regional countries into two camps. Because for all of us in Singapore and ASEAN, this is not a matter of choosing sides, but it's about making choices for ourselves, advancing our own collective interests, and doing what's best for our peoples.
Highlighting Singapore's long support of China's engagement in Southeast Asia, Mr. Wong welcomes China's intent to deepen free trade in the region. He adds that Singapore has consistently supported China's reform and opening up over the past 4 decades. It's reflected in major projects such as the Suzhou Industrial Park and Chongqing Connectivity Initiative, where Singapore is a partner.
China and Singapore are continuing to build on this very strong foundation by collaborating in emerging areas of the new economy, such as the digital economy and the green economy. This will open up new opportunities for businesses in both our countries in areas like digital trade, digitally enabled services, renewable energy, green financing, as well as environmental services.
Singapore also wants to do more to foster deeper people-to-people links with China. Mr. Wong says organizations like Business China, which nurtures bilingual and bicultural Singaporeans, will play an important role. He encourages it to continue nurturing China-ready skills in the next generation of Singaporeans.
Singapore's Senior Minister Teo Chee Hean says US-China relations are still on a downward spiral, even if he believes the world's 2 largest economies want to avoid a war. He was speaking at a dialogue on geopolitical turbulence at the FutureChina Global Forum.
The current trajectory, in my view, is not a positive one. But I should add that although all 3 parties, China, Taiwan, and the US, say that they have not changed their position. That's what they say. But actually the position has shifted for all 3 of them. And the previous position, had brought us peace for the last 50, 70 years across the straits. And the shift in positions of all 3 brings a new level of uncertainty.
Well, asked about how Singapore stays relevant to both superpowers without being caught up in their contestation, Mr. Teo says that Singapore doesn't choose sides, it chooses principles. And he cited Singapore's stance on the Russia-Ukraine war as an example.
We have said that we don't choose sides. But people sometimes misunderstand that by not choosing sides, we don't have a view. That's not true. We have a view. We choose principles. By choosing principles, then we become consistent and we become reliable. And so we have done that, we've tried to do that consistently over a period of time, whether it's got to do with territorial integrity and sovereignty, whether it's got to do with regional integration, whether it's got to do with free trade, whether it's got to do with global, the international global order and respect for that.
On the 4G leadership, Mr. Teo says he can see his colleagues have their hearts in the right place, but they also have the ability and the capability to lead the country and guide its people.
You can see that, and increasingly so over the last few years. COVID, I think, is a very good example where you are thrown into a crisis, you have to make decisions, difficult decisions in the face of uncertainty. You have to explain that to a public which is frightened, confused, and wanting guidance and leadership. And I think they have succeeded in doing that quite well. And if you ask me, they are up to the task. For Singapore, we are a small country. Our room for margin is very, very small.